If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Just love that theme song so much, and throughout my entire childhood that theme song played and played and played, and I loved it. And now we finally have Ghostbusters Afterlife here. It's been delayed so many times. I'm so happy I got to finally see it. It's been one of my most anticipated films in such a long while. And thank God this movie is a breath of fresh air for the Ghostbusters franchise, and it is absolutely fantastic. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new non-spoiler review for Ghostbusters Afterlife. When a single mother and her two kids arrive in a small town, they begin to discover their connection to the original Ghostbusters and the secret legacy that their grandfather left behind. It's written and directed by Jason Reitman, yes, the son of the original Ivan Reitman, and it has Finn Wolfhard, Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, McKenna Grace, Logan Kim, and Celeste O'Connor all in this movie. Now, I have been out of my mind pretty excited about this one. I love the Ghostbusters. Wasn't the biggest fan of 2. The remake's fine. I have a lot of thoughts on those, and I'll definitely be doing a ranking of all the Ghostbusters movies later down this week, so do stay tuned for that. But I have so many thoughts on this, and again, this will be non-spoilers because there are a lot of fun twists and turns and Easter eggs that you do not want to be spoiled on. I know a lot of them I was so happy to be enjoying on, especially the 2 end credit scenes, which I really must say, stay for those because they are a lot of fun. Of course, if you guys are new here and you also love talking movies just as much as I do, you are in the right place. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as comment down below your guys' overall thoughts. How excited are you for the Ghostbusters, and who is your favorite Ghostbusters from the original movie? Like any movie review, I love talking about the pros first, and one of the big pros I gotta give this film is the Force Awakens approach that Jason Reitman took to the entire movie. I love Force Awakens, but it is pretty similar to the Star Wars A New Hope. The thing that I love about Ghostbusters Afterlife is pretty much half of the movie is this completely self-contained story that is nothing that we have seen in the Ghostbusters franchise yet. In a sense, it's a coming-of-age story that I truly enjoyed. Then the back half definitely gets to the more nostalgic, and it actually really much hones in and builds off of what the original Ghostbusters had brought to life within the mythology, characters, lore, all things like that. And those are some of the things that I loved about the movie, and I love how both acts really much connected in such a perfect limelight. God, that first act, that coming of age story that they had with these main characters introducing us to everyone was superb. And one of the things I gotta give it where credit is due, Finn Wolfhard, I love in Stranger Things, but any other performance from him after that, I've always just seen him as that same kid. Thankfully, this does not just seem like Stranger Things Ghostbusters. This is actually genuinely a great performance from Finn. Thankfully, the tone actually very much harkens back to the original 80s Ghostbusters movie, and I just ate that up, and especially within all the performances and the way that the characters interact. Because when we go to McKenna Grace, who's absolutely the big standout star in this, I've always loved McKenna Grace in performances, but in this movie in particular, she is amazing. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. She has these funny pun jokes in here that every single one made me laugh, and I adored her. I want more of her in the Ghostbusters world. It was so great, and she really much harkened in to Egon himself, and it was such a perfect match made in heaven. They could not have casted anyone else. And again, it goes back to the same thing that I just mentioned, is how this movie really much feels directly from the 80s, but in a grand way. When you get these characters interacting, the jokes don't just feel jokes to have jokes. They feel like actual character interactions. These characters feel like characters, not SNL short skit characters, or we're coming back together to form something. It actually feels like something that the original Ghostbusters had in its lot. So I want to give a shout out to Logan Kim, who I thought was great as Podcast. Celeste O'Connor, I liked as Lucky, but I definitely wanted more of her. Carrie Coon is always amazing in any role that she has, and she has a lot of great aspects and moments in here. And Paul Rudd. It's Paul Rudd, sexiest man of 2021 apparently, and he's amazing in this as well. What would you not expect from that? Entire new cast of Ghostbusters characters I want more of, and I hope to God if they do plan on doing more Ghostbusters films, which I'm sure they always have in the back of their mind, I am so in for all of that. Speaking of that, and speaking about the original Ghostbusters movie, there is heavy nostalgia and heavy Easter eggs in here that if you have recently watched the Ghostbusters movies, you're going to be able to pick apart them all throughout the entire movie, and they all work so well. I never felt like it was bonking me over the head, be like, hey, you remember this? Hey, you remember this? Hey, remember that? So it all feels seamless, and again, the original Ghostbusters movie, the events of there really much did happen in this world, and Paul Rudd is a kind of a fanatic to it, and it was nice to see that because we got a glimpse of that in the trailer, but the way that they actually play off that in the movie works wonders. Plus, the action and the way that Jason Reitman actually filmed it feels so reminiscent of the original Ghostbusters, but even better. One of my favorite aspects in here is something that we see in the trailer is when they're in the gunner seat and you see McKenna Grace shooting at this ghost flying around. That entire sequence, actually watching in a movie theater, was phenomenal, and it was actually very intense, and it reminds me of the first time that I had seen the original Ghostbusters and seeing the laser beams had shot out and the way that they trapped the ghost. It brings back that same feelings, and I can't wait to see like new generational people who have never seen Ghostbusters before, like kids, go and see this movie and get such love to this universe. Because I think there's a lot to love in there, especially when it comes down to the action, the thrilling aspects, the comedy, and how it all melds so wonderfully. Once again, this movie, while it builds off the original Ghostbusters, this does feel overall different, but similar in the same vein. And I honestly think to have Jason Reitman be the one to direct and write this just feels so special, especially with what his father had done within the first movie. One thing that I absolutely love from the original Ghostbusters is how it was actually kind of scary and spooky, and there were actually some genuinely nice jump scares and scary effects. Ghostbusters Afterlife actually brings that back. I felt like Ghostbusters 2, and especially the remake, very much were missing out on those aspects, even though, yes, again, Ghostbusters remake had some nice visual flares, even though I find the video effects in here way better. I loved seeing how actually scary this movie was and intense and enthralling at certain moments it actually brought it about to be. And honestly, I just sat there with a big smile on my face and laughing, enjoying myself, and having such a blast. This is what Ghostbusters Afterlife does. And again, there are so many surprises in this movie. While, again, some I saw coming, and we'll talk about that just right now because I do feel that I have some cons. This movie is not perfect, and I do think the movie is pretty predictable from point A to point B to point C. While everything is very much, it feels different at times, you still know where it's exactly going towards the end of the story. And while it didn't completely bother me, and I wasn't even thinking about that in the moment, once I left the theater, I started thinking about that more and discussing with other people, and I'm like, yeah, I definitely, it was a little bit predictable. Even though if it was, there were still some surprises in there. One in particular towards the third act that I did not expect to get at all, and when it happened, I was, honest to God, very emotional and just sat there in awe that, wow, they did that. That is awesome. I do like the connections to the original Ghostbusters so well, especially in the way that they took this story, and it makes so much sense. And as a con, I did find the movie a little bit predictable in some of those avenues. And the only other thing is there are some other characters in this movie that I do feel like deserved a little bit more time on the screen to understand why they would kind of be helping out with this situation. When you see the movie, you'll understand there's two kids in particular that, while, again, you get some nice enjoyable moments with them, I would have just liked a couple more moments with them in particular to kind of flesh out that relationship just a tad bit more. Ghostbusters Afterlife is a much needed breath of fresh air for the franchise. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's charming and exciting and nostalgic, and of course spooky. It builds off what made the original so good, and it never stopped. And McKenna Grace, she's a damn star. Finn Wolfhard's great, Carrie Coon, Paul Rudd, everyone is great in this movie. I had such a blast. It's a fantastic movie. That same feeling you got from Force Awakens, and I'm sure if you liked Force Awakens, you got that great feeling like I did. And if you didn't, then maybe you'll kind of feel the same way with Ghostbusters Afterlife, but I adored Force Awakens. I love the Ghostbusters franchise. I wanted something like this. Everything I expected this movie to be, it was, and a little bit more. So with all that said, I'm going to give Ghostbusters Afterlife an A-. So much to discuss, guys, and I can't wait to give you guys my ranking of the Ghostbusters franchise later this week, so stay tuned to that. Thank you once again for watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below your guys' thoughts. Head on over to Sandwich Run Films on how to see films early, and of course, the big thing to you and a big thing to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I would not be able to do this. So, of course, until next time, stay classy, call the Ghostbusters, and stay after the credits for 2 post-credit scenes that are both delightful.